Okay, let's unpack this. In the modern world, especially in, business and politics, we have this obsession with the Machiavellian.
Mm-hmm.
It's become the absolute shorthand for everything dark, cunning, calculated. You watch a show like House of Cards or Succession, or you see a CEO make some ruthless move and everyone just nods and says, oh, that's very Machiavellian.
It is. It's the brand name for political realism, right?
Yeah.
The ends justify the means.
Hmm.
It's become the standard we measure ruthlessness by.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part that honestly always blows my mind. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince in the early 1500s.
Right.
But nearly 1,800 years before Machiavelli was even born, before Rome was an empire, before Christianity, before Islam, there was a man in India who had already written the entire playbook.
The whole thing.
And honestly, when you stack them up side by side, he makes Machiavelli look like a high school guidance counselor.
That is a very fair assessment. We are talking about a level of strategic depth that is almost frightening.
We are talking, of course, about Acharya Chanakya, also known as Kautilya or Vishnugupta. And the text we are diving into today is the Sampurna Chanakya Niti, or roughly translated, the complete Chanakya policy and ethics.
And it is so important to clarify right off the bat. This isn't just some dusty history book.
Yeah.
This isn't a museum piece that you look at and go, oh, how quaint. The source material we have here it's essentially a manual on how to hack the operating system of society. It covers everything.
Everything.
How to run a massive empire? Check. How to spot a fake friend who is secretly trying to destroy you? Check. How to manage your money, your marriage, your diet? It's all in there.
It's like a theory of everything for power and survival.
Precisely. And the mission for this deep dive is really to see if we can extract the core of that philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chanakya is not a soft teacher. He doesn't care about your feelings.
Not at all.
He cares about results. He famously believed that the word impossible was something used only by cowards.
Impossible is for cowards. That sets the tone right there, doesn't it? But before we get into the specific advice, because he has these very specific lists for everything, we have to set the stage.
You'll have to.
Because the context explains the rage. And looking at the publisher's notes and the introduction in our source material, the context here is just as wild as the advice.
The rage is the engine of the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
So picture India in the 4th century BCE. It's a mess.
A total mess.
It's not one country. It's a fractured collection of small, selfish kingdoms all fighting each other.
Oh.
And looming on the horizon at the northwestern gates is Alexander the Great.
Wow.
The Greek army is coming. It's an existential threat.
So you have this external monster at the door and just internal chaos in the house.
Exactly. And in the middle of all this, you have the kingdom of Magadha. It's powerful, it's wealthy, but it's ruled by the Nanda dynasty. And the king, Mahananda, is described in our text as just the worst kind of tyrant. Arrogant, intoxicated by his own power, completely indifferent to the fact that his country is vulnerable.
And this is the origin story moment, right? Because Chanakya wasn't a general, he wasn't a prince, he was a teacher.
He was a Brahmin scholar at Takshashila University, which is like the Oxford or Harvard of the ancient world. He sees the danger Alexander poses. He knows India needs to unite. So he travels to the court of Magadha to warn the king. He goes to the royal assembly.
And this is where it all goes wrong.
Catastrophically wrong. Instead of listening to this wise scholar, the king is insulted that a beggar Brahmin would dare to tell him how to run his kingdom. He mocks Chanakya. He insults his appearance. Chanakya was not considered, traditionally handsome.
Right.
And ultimately, he has him thrown out of the assembly.
For a Brahmin in that era, honor is everything. It's currency. So that's like a death of reputation.
It is. But Chanakya doesn't just leave and, write a mean poem about it. He does something theatrical. He stops in front of the entire court and he unties his shikha.
And we should probably pause on that image for the listener. The shikha is that traditional lock of hair on the back of a Brahmin priest's head. It's usually kept tied in a very, very tight knot.
Exactly. It's a symbol of discipline, of control, of religious status. It represents the knot of their commitment to God and knowledge. To untie it in public is an act of desecration. It's like a soldier ripping the flag off his uniform.
Wow.
Chanakya unties it, lets his hair fall loose, and swears a vow that just echoes through history. He says, I will not tie this knot back until I have uprooted the Nanda dynasty, destroyed you completely, and placed a worthy ruler on the throne.
That's so intense. It's one guy against a superpower. It's like a university professor walking into the White House, getting kicked out and saying, okay, fine, I'm going to overthrow the government.
And the crazy part.
Yeah.
He did it. He had no army. He had no money. He had his brain. He found a young boy named Chandragupta Maurya, nobody really, and trained him. He turned this kid into a weapon. And through pure strategy, espionage, and political maneuvering, they dismantled the Nanda Empire and established the Mauryan Empire, which united most of the Indian subcontinent. The text even compares him to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the modern leader who unified India, because they both did the impossible work.
There's a specific anecdote in the text that I think captures his personality just perfectly, the thornbush story. It's such a small moment, but it tells you everything you need to know about how his mind works.
Oh, it's the definitive Chanakya moment. The story goes that shortly after he took this vow, he was walking through a forest path with his disciples. He's angry, he's thinking, and suddenly he steps on a sharp thorn. It pierces his foot.
Right. Now, a normal person, you or me, we'd pull out the thorn, curse a bit, maybe kick the bush, and just keep walking.
Sure.
Or maybe, if we were feeling proactive, we'd take a machete and cut the bush down so no one else steps on it.
Right. That's the typical reaction. Deal with the immediate pain, maybe trim the problem. But Chanakya stops. He looks at the bush, and he asks his disciples to go fetch him some buttermilk.
Which, on the surface, is just baffling. Is he thirsty? Is he going to make a poultice? It sounds like such a random request.
But he takes the buttermilk and he pours it into the soil, right into the roots of the thorny bush.
Why? I mean, what does dairy have to do with landscaping?
The logic is ruthless biological warfare. The sweet buttermilk soaks into the roots. This attracts ants, thousands of them.
Oh, wow.
They swarm the roots to get the sugar. In the process, they eat through the roots completely. The bush doesn't just die, it is eradicated. It can never grow back.
That is the Chanakya doctrine right there. You don't just manage a problem, you don't just cut it back. You find the root and you destroy it so thoroughly that it can never threaten you again.
Total eradication. Whether it's a thorn bush or corrupt dynasty, he applied the buttermilk strategy to the Nanda kings. He didn't just defeat them in battle, he dismantled their alliances, their economy, and their legitimacy until they just collapsed from the inside.
So, with that level of intensity in mind, that scorched earth or buttermilk mentality, let's look at the actual advice in the Chanakya Niti, because he starts with the absolute basics. Survival. Specifically, where you should live.
This is from chapter 1, and he lays out this really strict checklist for choosing a place of residence. He says a wise person must leave a country or a place immediately if it lacks 5 specific things. He's basically saying you cannot be a good person or a successful person if you are in a bad place.
Okay, let's run through the list. What are the non-negotiables for a base of operations?
First is respect or honor. If you are in a society or a company where you are not respected, where your dignity is constantly under attack, you leave. You cannot thrive in humiliation.
That just tracks. I mean, if you're fighting for respect every single day, you have no energy left for growth. What's next?
Second is means of livelihood. It sounds obvious, but he's so pragmatic. If there's no economy, no way to generate wealth, you go. You can't eat philosophy. Third is bandhu, or family and friends, a support network. If you are isolated, you are vulnerable. Fourth is vidya, or access to education and knowledge. If you can't learn there, you will stagnate.
And the fifth one is interesting because he breaks it down into these very specific infrastructure requirements.
He does. He says a viable civilization must have 5 pillars. A rich person for capital and trade, a learned Brahmin for moral and religious guidance, a king for law and order, a river for a water source, and a physician for healthcare.
It's basically a setup for a functional city. If you don't have law, capital, health, water, and knowledge, you aren't living in a civilization. You're basically just camping in the wild.
Exactly. And he warns against staying in places where there is no fear of authority, no sense of shame, and no spirit of charity. He's describing a lawless, amoral society, and he says, get out. Your environment shapes your destiny. You cannot be a righteous man in a wicked village.
Speaking of wicked villages, he has this concept that really stuck with me. Annamete pradahanti.
They burn without fire.
This is such a powerful image, isn't it? We usually think of danger as something violent, a sword, a fire, a punch. But Chanakya says there are things that scorch your body and soul just as badly as a literal fire, even though there are no flames.
This is his recognition of chronic stress. It's so modern. He lists these invisible fires. Living in a wicked village is one of them. Serving a low-born or unworthy master is another. Think about that. Having a boss who you don't respect, who has no honor, it just brings you up inside day after day.
It's the stress of cognitive dissonance. You're serving someone you despise.
Precisely. He also mentions bad food. which feels very, very modern. If your diet is garbage, you are inflamed. You are burning from the inside.
Bad food makes the list of things that destroy your life. That's surprisingly holistic for an ancient political text.
Well, Chanakya knew that a sick body cannot support a sharp mind. And then the social ones are just brutal. A quarrelsome wife, a foolish son, a widowed daughter, which was a massive social stigma and tragedy in his time, and poverty. He views poverty not just as a lack of money, but as a burning state of existence.
And humiliation by one's own people? Oof, that one hits hard. It's betrayal. When the people who are supposed to be your bandu, your support network, when they turn on you, it's a fire that just doesn't go out.
And unlike a literal fire, which, it kills you quickly, these fires keep you alive while they burn you. It's a slow, agonizing drain on your vitality.
So if poverty is a fire, let's talk about his solution to it, Artha, wealth. Chanakya is often seen as very materialistic compared to other Indian sages. He doesn't say renounce the world, he says get paid.
He is a realist, through and through. He believes that dharma, righteousness, is the goal, but artha, wealth, is the root. You cannot have a moral society if everyone is starving.
Right.
But, and this is a big but, he views wealth with deep suspicion. He calls it chanchal. Restless, like a person who can't sit still. Money moves. It doesn't belong to anyone. So his advice is, don't get attached, but do get prepared. He introduces the concept of a potkol.
Time of disaster.
Yes. He says the primary purpose of wealth isn't luxury, it's insurance. You save money specifically for the day the world falls apart, because it will.
But then he gives this hierarchy of protection that I think stops a lot of people in their tracks. It's a ladder of what you should sacrifice, and in what order.
This is the cold calculus of survival, he says. Save wealth to protect yourself against disaster. Okay, then spend that wealth to protect your wife and family. So family is more important than money.
Okay, that's standard. Family over fortune. Most people would agree with that.
But then he says, if it comes down to a choice between yourself, your Atman, your life, your soul, versus your wealth and your wife, you sacrifice both to save yourself.
Throw the money and the wife overboard to save the ship. That sounds incredibly selfish to a modern ear. I come first.
It sounds selfish, but look at it structurally. In Chanakya's system, the individual, the head of the household, or the king, is the anchor. If the anchor is gone, the ship drifts and everyone dies anyway. You cannot protect your family if you are dead. You cannot earn wealth if you are dead. It's the put your own oxygen mask on first rule, but taken to the absolute, most brutal extreme.
It's the preservation of the central unit. If the king falls, the kingdom falls.
Exactly. And this leads directly into how he views the people around that central unit. If you are the prize to be protected, you need to know who is actually on your team. And Chanakya, well, let's just say he didn't trust easily.
That's an understatement. He treats trust like structural engineering. You don't just hope a bridge holds, you stress test it.
He explicitly tells us to run litmus tests on our relationships. You don't know who a person is when things are going well. You only know them when things break.
So how do we test them? What's the protocol?
He breaks it down by role. How do you test a servant or an employee? You test them in the performance of their duty, give them a difficult task and see what happens. Obedience in easy times means nothing. Do they deliver when it's hard?
And how do you test your relatives, your own family?
You see who shows up when you are in sorrow, when you're grieving, or when you've lost your status. The ones who drift away. They weren't really relatives. They were opportunists who just happened to share your blood.
And the wife.
This ties right back to the money. You test a wife when your wealth is lost. If the lifestyle goes away, does the partnership stay? The text says a true wife is one who's pure and clever, but crucially, one who is a partner even in poverty.
And finally, the friend.
The friend is the most interesting one. We use that word so loosely today. Oh, he's my friend. We go to the gym together. Chanakya would say, no, that's an acquaintance. A true friend is defined by 4 specific, terrible locations.
Where do they stand with you?
First, in sickness and disease. Who sits by your bed? Second, during a famine or drought economic collapse. Who shares their last piece of bread? Third, in a court battle or under state oppression. When the government is coming after you, who is standing next to you in court?
And the fourth one is pretty final.
The cremation ground. The friend who walks with you to the grave.
That is a high bar, a really high bar.
It's an impossible bar for most people. But that's his point. If they aren't there for the cremation, they're just fair weather companions.
Yeah.
And he warns us about the dangerous opposite of this. The false friend. The poison pot. It's such a vivid image. A clay pot filled to the brim with deadly poison. but just on the very rim, there's a thin layer of sweet milk.
So when you first taste it, it's sweet.
Right. They flatter you, they speak sweetly to your face, they agree with all your ideas,
Yeah.
but deep down, behind your back, they are sabotaging your work. Chanakya says this is the most dangerous person in your life, worse than an open enemy.
Because an enemy is visible. You know where an enemy stands. A poison pot friend is camouflaged.
He says to dump these people immediately. No second chances. Avoid them like you would avoid a snake.
Speaking of snakes, he actually makes a direct comparison, which is fascinating. He asks, who is better? A wicked person, Durjan, or a venomous snake?
And his verdict is the snake.
How is a cobra better than a bad neighbor?
Predictability. A snake bites only when it is destined to or when it's provoked or stepped on. It's defensive or instinctual. But a wicked person, they bite at every step. They create misery for sport. They will sabotage you just because they can. The snake has a rhythm. The wicked person is chaotic.
That chaos, it just drains you. Which brings us to his view on fools. I have to say, reading this part, Chanakya sounds like the most intolerant man in history. He has zero patience for stupidity.
Zero. He calls fools two-legged animals. He says they wander the earth in human form, but they are beasts. And he says their words pierce you like unseen thorns.
Because you can't reason with them.
You can't. You waste your energy trying to explain, trying to fix, trying to help. It's a black hole for your life force. His advice is avoid them. Completely cut them out.
He even says something really dark about children here. He says it is better for a son to die at birth than to live a long life as a fool.
It's incredibly harsh. But look at the utilitarian logic again. A dead son causes grief once, at the moment of death. It's a tragedy, but it's a finite event. But a foolish son, a son who ruins the family reputation, who squanders the wealth, who makes bad decisions, he causes grief every single day of his parents' life. He burns them with that fire without fire until they die.
It's all about the resource drain. Chanakya views the family as an economic and political unit. A fool compromises the integrity of that unit.
Correct. But, and here's the nuance, Chanakya is also the ultimate pragmatist. He hates fools, but he loves value. He has this concept of nectar from poison.
Right, take gold even if it's fallen in filth.
Exactly. If you drop a gold coin in a pile of manure, do you leave it there? No. You wash it off and take it. Gold is gold.
So if a low-born person has knowledge, you learn from them.
Yes. If an enemy has a virtuous daughter, you marry her, he says. Don't let your ego or your prejudice stop you from acquiring value. If there is wisdom to be had, grab it, no matter the source. It's a very mercenary approach to learning.
Okay, we need to address the elephant in the room. Or rather, the section in the text about gender.
Yes.
The source material contains a section on women, and we need to be very clear to the listener here. We are reporting on a text from 2,300 years ago. These are Chanakya's views, reflecting his era and his specific worldview. And they are complicated. And frankly, some of it is quite offensive by modern standards.
It is. And as impartial observers, our job is to report what the text says, not to sanitize it. But we also have to try to understand the lens he's looking through. In Chapter 2, Chanakya lists what he considers the inherent nature of women. And he lists traits like lying, rashness, deceit, stupidity, greed, impurity, and cruelty.
It's basically a laundry list of vices. It's pretty bleak.
It is. It's a very cynical view. But we have to remember, Chanakya was a spy master. In his political treatise, the Arthashastra, he extensively discusses using women as spies, as assassins, as poisoned damsels, Vishkanya, to seduce and kill rival kings. So he viewed women in the court as potential weapons. So this paranoia about deceit and lying, it might come from a place of professional hazard.
That's a fair point. If you treat people as weapons, you assume they're dangerous. But then, almost in the same breath, he does this comparative analysis of power or drive that almost sounds like admiration.
This is the paradox, right? In Chapter 1, he compares men and women biologically and emotionally. And he says compared to men, women have 2 times the hunger, 4 times the shyness or social caution, 6 times the courage, and 8 times the calm, the lust or desire.
6 times the courage, not what you'd expect.
Exactly. So while he's insulting their moral character in one verse, he's acknowledging a much higher capacity for resilience, for daring, for sheer life force in another. He sees women as these high-energy beings. Dangerous, yes. Hard to control, yes. But more powerful in their drives than men.
It feels like he's warning his male students. Don't underestimate them. They are hungrier, braver, and more intense than you are.
That's the vibe. Manage them, or they will overwhelm you.
And his advice on marriage reflects this desire for control. He says, Do not marry a beautiful girl from a bad or corrupt family. Lineage matters more than looks,
Better a girl from a noble family, even if she is corrupt, not beautiful.
because behavior runs in the bloodline, according to him. He wants stability. He defines a home as heaven on earth. Only if the son is obedient, the husband is satisfied with what he has, and the wife acts according to the husband's wish.
It's the patriarchal dream of total order. Hierarchy, everyone in their lane.
Order is everything to Chanakya. Chaos is the enemy. And the best way to ensure order, according to him, is education. We talked about fools earlier. Chanakya believes stupidity isn't just an accident, it's often a failure of parenting.
Education is completely non-negotiable for him. There is a verse that is quite famous. Parents who do not educate their children are their enemies.
Shatru. Enemies. That's a strong word.
He says by not educating them, you are setting them up for a lifetime of humiliation. He uses the image of a crane, bagla, sitting in an assembly of swans. The crane looks foolish, out of place, awkward. That is your uneducated child in the real world. You did that to them.
He also puts education way above beauty.
Always. He compares uneducated beauty to the Kanshuka flower. It's this bright, red, stunning flower to look at, but it has no scent. It's hollow. It attracts you, but it offers nothing.
And he flips it. An ugly person's beauty is their knowledge.
I love that line. It's the great equalizer. You can be poor, you can be physically unattractive, you can be from a low caste, but if you have knowledge, you have a beauty that power respects. Chanakya himself was described as physically ugly in some texts, broken teeth, dark skin. But he ruled the emperor. Knowledge was his beauty.
He gives a very specific roadmap for raising a son, the 5-10-16 rule. I've actually seen this on parenting blogs today.
It's timeless, he says.
Yeah.
0 to 5 years, pamper the child, love them, hug them, let them play. They are babies. 5 to 15 years, discipline them. This is the boot camp phase. Punish them if they do wrong. Mold them. This is where that enemy-parent concept applies. If you are soft now, you ruin them later.
And then there's a big pivot.
Age 16. When the son turns 16, treat him like a friend. Mitravad.
That is surprisingly psychologically astute for an ancient text.
It is. He realizes that once a young man is 16, you can't rule him by force anymore. If you try to discipline him like a child, he will rebel. You have to pivot to mentorship. You have to bring him into the council.
Let's zoom out a bit. We've been talking about all these strategies, how to act, who to marry, where to live. It all implies we have control. But Chanakya also has this deep streak of fatalism.
It's the tension at the heart of the entire text. In chapter 4, he lists 5 things that are stamped on you while you are still in the womb. You haven't even taken a breath, and these things are locked in.
Okay, what are they?
Age, how long you will live. Karma, your profession and actions. Wealth, education, and death.
Wait a minute. If wealth and education are predetermined in the womb, why did he just spend 10 chapters telling us how to get rich and why we must educate our kids? Why did he vow to overthrow a king if the king's fate was already written?
That is the million-dollar question. It's the paradox of purushartha, effort, versus prarabdha, destiny. I think Chanakya believes that the script is written, but you still have to play the role with maximum intensity. Or perhaps your effort is the mechanism by which destiny delivers the result.
So you can't just sit on the couch and say, well, if I'm destined to be rich, I guess the checks will just show up in the mail.
Exactly. That is laziness, not wisdom.
Yeah.
Also, Chanakya warns that even if you are destined for greatness, you can ruin it through excess. Ati.
Excess should be avoided everywhere.
Ati sarvatra varjaya. He uses these mythological examples. Sita was abducted because of her extreme beauty. Ravana was killed because of his extreme pride.
And King Bali, that one was surprising.
King Bali was a great, generous king, but he was bound and defeated because of his extreme charity. He didn't know when to say no.
So even being too good is a survival risk.
Balance is survival. If you are too charitable, you bankrupt yourself. If you are too honest, you get tricked by the crooked. Chanakya wants you to be the middle path warrior.
This brings us to the ultimate framework. We started with the hierarchy of protection, sacrificing the wife for the self. But in chapter 3, he expands this into a hierarchy of sacrifice that basically covers the entire universe. And it leads to a very surprising conclusion for a man so obsessed with empire.
This is the most profound part of the Niti, I think. He gives us the order of operations for making hard choices. He says, sacrifice a person for the sake of the family. If one member is toxic and ruining the clan, you have to cut them loose.
Okay, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. That makes sense.
Then, sacrifice a family for the sake of the village. If a single family is endangering the whole community, they have to go. Then, sacrifice a village for the sake of the country. Chanapada. This is national security. You flood a village to build a dam that saves the nation.
So far, this is classic political utilitarianism. The bigger unit always wins.
But then he drops the hammer. The final line is, sacrifice the whole world for the sake of the self.
Whoa. Stop. He just said sacrifice the village for the country. Now he says burn the whole world for yourself. Isn't that a massive contradiction?
It depends on what you mean by self. And this is where Chanakya the Brahmin steps out from behind Chanakya the politician.
He's not talking about the physical body, is he? My own selfish desires.
No. He's talking about the Atman, the soul, the conscience. His point is, you play the game, you build the empire, you protect the nation. But if the world demands that you sell your soul, if the world asks you to violate your fundamental dharma, to lose who you are, you let the world burn.
So it's the old biblical question, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?
Exactly. It's the ultimate spiritual sovereignty. The empire is just dirt and stone. The Atman is eternal. So be ruthless in the world, yes, but never at the cost of your own spiritual destruction.
That completely reframes him. He's not just some power-hungry dictator maker. He's a spiritual pragmatist. He's saying, build the structure, but don't become a prisoner of it.
Correct. He synthesizes artha, worldly success, and dharma, righteousness. He teaches you how to win the game, but he reminds you why you were playing it in the first place.
That is a powerful place to land. So what does this all mean for the listener? We've covered a lot of ground, but if they have to take one thing into their Monday morning meeting.
I think it's the idea of active gardening. We drift through life hoping things will work out. We hope our friends are loyal. We hope our jobs are secure, Chanakya says. Stop hoping. Look at the roots. Is there a thorn bush? Pour buttermilk on it. Is there a fake friend? Cut them off. Is there a disaster coming? Save your money.
Take control of the environment, or it will control you.
Exactly. And never forget the impossible part. This is a man who was laughed out of court, and he changed the map of history because he refused to accept that he was powerless.
Impossible is for cowards.
That's the energy.
Here is a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. We ended on that hierarchy, sacrificing the world for the self. In your own life, you're probably busy building your career, your family, your empire. But ask yourself, in the pursuit of all that, are you remembering to protect the self, your values, your peace, your soul above all else? Or are you sacrificing the self to build the world?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. See you next time.